Since you ask, black people in the United States on average were more successful than Asian Americans up until the 1950s and 60s when the United States started pushing the model minority myth. If you look at census data from the 1940s, black people were earning significantly more than Asian people. But the United States was engaging in military actions in Asia under the guise of bringing democracy and fighting against communism when the rest of the world started to wonder, with the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, the Chinese Exclusion Act, and Jim Crow, what business did the United States have being in another continent telling other countries how to operate when they treat their own people so poorly? That's when the United States started to say, no, Asians are doing great. They work hard, they're quiet, they don't protest, and they are lifting themselves up by their bootstraps out of poverty. The problem is black people who are protesting. And opportunities that were previously withheld from both black and Asian people started being provided to Asian people and continued to be withheld from black people. Then in 1964, when the Civil Rights Amendment finally passed and black people were supposed to receive equitable access to those opportunities, in 1965, the United States opened the door to Asian immigration with the Hart-Celler Act and continued giving those opportunities to Asian people. Very importantly, the ability and resources to open, own, and operate businesses in black neighborhoods, which effectively deprived black people of the ability to invest in their own neighborhoods. Now, in case you're still thinking, no, it really is about emphasis on education, by the 1980s, an Asian American without a high school diploma was earning about the same as a white person without a high school diploma, and both were earning significantly more than a black person without a high school diploma. So that has nothing to do with educational attainment and everything to do with the opportunities provided. But also that you inserted yourself in a conversation between two Asian Americans to weaponize Asian American identity against black people is just gross.
Wow, that's deep. Ooh, I don't even know what to say. You know what? I heard about how Asians were given loans to businesses over black people and especially certain types of businesses. So that's why we have so many Chinese restaurants, and this is why we have other communities who have opened up these liquor stores and convenience stores, etc., in our neighborhoods. And you know what? This just speaks to a much larger problem of we expecting for people that we consider to be the enemy to do things to have our best interests at heart. We reacted to a video earlier where the girls in the Barbie movie were talking about how hard it is to be a girl, right? And I'm like, look, you have to be the change that you want to see. I was just talking to a colleague before I broadcasted this video where this colleague was pointing out how Tariq Nasheed is pushing this narrative of the tether. Because you know, my father is Caribbean, I'm Caribbean American. And rather than talking about how we can really come together and create something much larger, they're creating the separation. I can show you how many times I've been called a tether. I'll look this up. I can tell you how many times I've been called a tether. I'll go into the dashboard, right? And I'll go into my comments and I'll look up the word tether because people have begun to call me a tether, to just go off on me, right? Let's see. These are the comments on my videos. TETHER, right? Tether, right? These are all of the comments that the word tether is in, and it's still, see, look, with the word tether in it. You saw I did the search. And so they're calling me a tether. They're saying all of these different things. And I'm like, I'm looking and I'm seeing what's happening. New York City, I believe the number is that they're accepting in 100,000 migrants or travelers from south of the border, right, into New York State alone, 100,000 a month. And I happened to walk past one of the hotels because all of the hotels are maxed to capacity because they're filled with people who have migrated across the border. Right. And so I was like, look at this. We have an influx of these citizens who are coming in. And what is this going to mean for our country? How does this change the cultural ecosystem? And like how she's talking about, you know, this model minority. Now we're bringing in all of these people from other countries. And why? Meanwhile, we're over here talking about, oh, well, I'm FBA, you're a tether, you're this, you're a that, right? And there was one girl, I was going to talk about this, but I didn't want to beat the situation with that girl and the cheesecake date, right? But she commented on there wanting to insult me, talking about how I'm a tether and this, that, and the other, right? And I'm like, wow, well, you know what? That comment really says more about her than it does about me, much like my body by Burger King says more about me than it does about that young lady. Right. And I thought to myself, here we are in this country talking about the epidemic of fatherlessness in these homes. about single mother households, etc. My father is Caribbean, yes. My father married my mother. When my mother died, my father he held down the fort of the household as the sole parent, the sole living parent, right? And he took care of us. He helped raise us for the second halves of our lives. And I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a lifetime entrepreneur. I've never had a full-time job. I'm quite successful at what it is that I do. I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist. I am an accredited school trained life coach. And I am doing very well. There are people who write to me, and there was a guy who wrote to me yesterday, and he was like, yeah, I want to come on your show. No. He was telling me to call him behind the scenes. And he was like, I want you to talk to my daughter so that you can know how a man should head a household. I said, listen, sir, I'm Caribbean American. There are many married men and cohesive families in my family. And part of the reason that he's saying this to me is because it's such an anomaly that perhaps he thinks I make my videos because I don't know what two-parent households look like and what a strong patriarch looks like. No, au contraire. I make my videos because I know firsthand what a strong patriarch looks like. I know firsthand what it looks like for a man to responsibly head household. I know. And thus, I make my videos because I know. But you see, there are people who will call me a tether as if there is nothing that you can learn from me. But oh, look at me as an example of other things that can be. Look, there's no need for us to separate ourselves from one another with vitriol. Now listen, I get it. I understand that if we're going to make the case for reparations, that we definitely want to distinguish the difference between a person like Roe going around screaming, I'm a black woman, let me get my reparation, and slapping people in the streets. To differentiate the difference between someone who was immigrated over here and a person who was an FBA, foundational Black American. Yes, I understand the need for when it comes to the talk about reparations, but when it comes to the talk about wealth building, about community growth, about ideas, about really growing as Black people, that's another story now. Because when it comes to it, when it comes to reparations, oh yes, the United States of America owes my FBA half money, and the crown, Queen of England, owes the Caribbean people money. And this is when we are owed our due. And I understand the difference between saying, well, you know what? There is a difference. And yes, there is a difference. But when it comes to us coming together to create something larger than ourselves, I mean, ask Tariq Nasheed where his production space is, where his film school is. Ask him where any of these things that he is doing to enrich and empower the Black community. Where are all of these things? He wants to separate and talk about what is he as an FBA doing? So when this woman starts talking about the model minority and how it has affected Black people and all of this, sometimes we are our own worst nightmare. We need to be the change that we want to see, but far too many of us are creating unnecessary separation. For what? Over what and for why? How does it benefit us? You see how they'll come together and when you go to a Chinese restaurant, you don't know who in there is Chinese or not. I went into a Japanese place, right? I went into a Japanese restaurant. They did not scream out "irashimasu" to me. They didn't. When I went and I ordered and I said, "Mizu onegaishimasu, kori iranai," she didn't know what I was talking about. And this was a Japanese restaurant. I said, what here? She was not even Japanese. But yet they'll come together and they'll create their businesses from all different countries and walks of life. Us here, born in this country, can't even come together. So we're going to continue to be overtaken. And this influx of people coming from south of the border, I don't know what's up, but there's something that's going on. But by the time we realize what's happening, it's going to be too late. What are your thoughts on this? Be a part of the live show with thousands of other viewers. Go to TonyaTKO.com/text and join the text notification squad and get a text whenever I go live. Support the show and yourself, and I'll see you on the next live broadcast.